It'll be mum's the word about other services then.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, here we are being conscious, you and I, Mr. Barry Hun. It's Let's Talk About Dating. And today we're going to talk about how to have a conscious relationship. I love talking about conscious dating. So this is even like a whole another step of all of your relationships being conscious, like with yourself and other people.
Yes.
I love it. I said, this is a really juicy topic.
But the funny thing is in a way, we've been hinting at this for several months, I think, for our show. So this is really going to be like, if you haven't watched our shows for the last 6 months, here's the summation. That's the more stuff.
Yeah, I loved it. I am going to give you full credit. You talked about this on Clubhouse. You came up with the subject. You came up with all the pieces, and I'm excited to contribute because, oh my God, this is such a great subject.
Well, the thing is, first of all, I want to say thank you for the props, but I'm going to relay it on and volley it over to my friend Chantal, who started the conversation. She's the one sent me the list. So I'm giving her a shout out because she's an awesome coach. We're going to do an IG Live together sometime next week, I think, week after. And she's awesome. I'm going to share this replay with her afterwards too, because she started this conversation and definitely will be part of it. And I know we can go further because this is like, once you've got some, you can go, oh, this and this and this and this and keep adding.
Oh, yeah. So, the building blocks on this. That this is such a really good foundational piece. And then where do you take it in the rest of your life? I mean, I just got off a coaching call and she kept saying, oh my God, I can't believe how this impacts all my relationships. Everything we talk about, even though it's centered around dating. You and I know this. But it's so fun. And it's so fun when the clients go, oh, wow, I can't believe how it helps my conversations. It helps my feelings about them. It helps the impact I'm having with them and their impact with me, how it's all so connected.
It's amazing how that works. So I guess we should just start the formal instructions and get the show on the road because we're already jumping in. I'm like so excited.
I know. So why don't you set it up? Because you're the impetus of this.
Well, first of all, welcome to GoingSoloMedia.com. The WGSN-DB Going Solo Media Network. Oh, I'm saying hi already. Jumping in. I'm trying to give the introduction. There we go.
That's our lovely guy from England that watches.
Okay. This is Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. Is that your cat?
And Sammy's having something. Come on out here, Sammy. He's like, oh, it must be video time. So Sammy's saying hello.
Boy, he didn't wait long, did he? He's like already jumping in.
He likes your voice, Barry. It really is you.
Thank you. Barry Selby. This is my dear friend Christine Baumgartner, who's also, we're both loving relationship coaches, and we've had this thing brewing for a while. And again, to repeat, this topic we're talking about today, which is about how to have a conscious relationship, came from a Clubhouse room that I was in Monday. So this is Thursday, so 3 days ago, with my friend Chantal, who's in she used to go to Canada, Montreal, Toronto. Anyway. Bottom line is she's an awesome coach as well, and we have great rapport and great conversations. And we had a topic about this, about key qualities of conscious relationship. And there are other coaches in there too in the Clubhouse room. And by the way, if you're not following me on Clubhouse, you might want to, because I get to be some really interesting rooms I get to be part of. And so this topic was started there. And some of the points we're going to speak from in this conversation are some that I stole from her. And more we're going to have besides, because this is a whole new conversation.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun to get to share between each coach. I mean, really, it's doctors get together in groups and talk about cases because they can't all know everything and they could have a different case or just have read an article. So I love this. This is, my favorite thing, that I get to keep having conversations with you because I get to bring my thoughts and you bring your thoughts. And I think it's it's not even double. It's like quadruple.
Yeah, it's logarithmic or something, to use that technical math term.
Cool. Fancy. Ooh, I like that.
I did math in high school.
See, there are things we use from math from high school, even though we're convinced when we're doing it, we're never going to use it again.
It was just for vernacular use, not even for actual functional use. Yeah.
I know. It sounds really impressive, though.
Oh, it's crazy. So I'm just going to start with the list because we talked about. So the first one that came up in the room, so we're talking about here, is about transactional relationships. And so let me explain what this first. Is that many of us, and I did in the past, I'm sure, I can remember at least one time I did this in a relationship, at least one, more than that, where the relationship was transactional, meaning that it was it wasn't a flow and a dance of relationship, which we'll get to. It was more of a just like, if I give you this, I want this back. Or I'll give you this because you gave me this in the first place, I'll give you something back to you. It's like, it's very much mechanical in some ways. And it can function great on the very simple, like, sexual relationship without any depth. But if you want romance and connection and intimacy, this is kind of limited. It's not very conscious.
And it's very even Steven. And I think the hardest part with even Steven is when you're giving and receiving in a relationship, it's not exactly the same thing that you give that they give. It could have the same value. It could have the same positive impact or negative impact. It's not apples to apples necessarily. And if you're looking for apples to apples, I think that's what this is addressing as well. You're going to miss out on something lovely and rich because it wasn't an apple, but it could have been this great kumquat, you know?
Absolutely. And on top of that, the problem is that you start to keep score and you start to judge your partner because they don't give you back what you thought they should give you to match what you gave them. And it's like, they're wrong, I'm right. And this whole right wrongs thing shows up. And it's a messy way of being in a relationship.
So messy. That is the good word for it.
Yeah. So that's the first one we talk about. And just to speak into the solution side of this, what would be a conscious relationship is one where you give them because you want to, first of all. And I know it's the one we can, of course, speak about later, but it's recognition is that you fill up your own battery first. One of the things I talked about many times in the codependent conversations we talked about is about we get so caught up in trying to make sure somebody else loves us enough to feel okay. But the reality is it starts with us loving ourselves first. So we're already okay before you meet the person.
Yes.
Then there's no transaction required because you're just giving because you have abundance to give and you love being the person and you're feeling the joy and the efficacy is the wrong word. But the abundance of giving and sharing and enjoying and embracing and receiving.
And as we've talked so much in the past of all the different ways you can fill yourself up, because otherwise you get depleted too much if you just keep giving and not giving to yourself.
Yes.
And if you don't give to yourself, it's really difficult. And people find this surprising when they learn this. It's even more difficult to receive if you haven't learned to receive giving to yourself. That somebody could be trying to give you something really lovely and you're like, oh, I don't deserve that, or oh, I can't have that, because you haven't figured out how to give it to yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing when you do start really giving yourself and loving who you are, your receptivity to the goodness, so to speak, increases because you start realizing you deserve what you want. And it's not from an ego place, it's from a place of wholeness.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, I'm going, this one topic you can take the whole time.
Yeah.
Of course.
I know. We have 12 to go get to, so.
I've got a couple more that showed up in meditation this morning, so we may be more. We'll see what happens.
Yay.
But I want to sidebar slightly because the one thing about transactional piece that came up, and we talked about this one before, in the transactional piece, oftentimes we're comparing apples to apples. But again, like for example, and we talked this before, is the 5 love languages. And so the wiring we have when you say we want apples to apples, but if you would say, well, they didn't tell me they loved me enough times today, but they touched your arm or they hugged you or they kissed you on the cheek, which is which physical touch is their love language and yours is words of affirmation, you keep missing the point of each other.
Yes.
So this is like 1A and number 2 at the same time, which is basically you've got to know how to be in a relationship in terms of know the different parts of relationships, how to communicate, how to connect, how to be understanding the other person's way of being. So like the 5 love languages is a great thing to start with. Knowing, for example, Myers-Briggs, the MBTI, which is also known as 16 personalities. Like knowing your own style and the other person's style can be very additive to how you can express with each other, because then you know how they want to be loved, you know how they express love, how they express connection, and you can go, I get it now. And then you can enjoy that.
And one of the analogies I've used a lot, because you said that so eloquently, when they go, but I wish they would do it this way. I always say, because I don't usually meet the other person, I said, so what color eyes do they have? Blue? So you're asking them to have brown eyes. Look at all the things you like about them having blue eyes. There's lots of things. This is why you're with them. They can't have brown eyes. So how can we make it okay enough that they don't have brown eyes? It's really as unemotional as that, because they're so caught up in the emotion. Sometimes it helps to take it out of the emotional realm of, let's see what we do with blue-eyed people.
Right.
Yeah.
And with one additive to that point about the thing, like for example, the love languages, is if you're in a new relationship and already know you've done the 5 languages test and you know your love language, that's great, wonderful. It doesn't hurt. In fact, I recommend it, is to have your partner do it as well, if they haven't. Yeah. Because then they understand, because then you're on the same playing field, first of all. And secondly, then when you talk about it, say, it's, I know I'm loved when you hold me versus when you tell me. Yeah. And they go, yeah, my natural tendency is to do like acts of service where I do things around the house to make you feel good. And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not noticing that naturally, but now I know that's your style. I'll keep an eye out, because the thing with other languages are, you can learn from each other. Yeah. And you can also, because you then know what their primary love language is, you can then go, that's their gesture of love. That isn't my natural way, but I'll take it anyway.
Yeah. And then it's okay that they have blue eyes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because we get so emotional. It's our heart, for God's sake, and our future and love with all the big words, which is lovely. And sometimes we just got to go, okay, can we put it over here in a less emotional place just for the sake of this conversation? Because it makes our brain stop being so hot. My husband used to tell me, you make my brain hot in ways it's never been before. And I think I like it, but I've never thought this way before. It was pretty funny. Because you make my brain hot.
I would say, frankly, he definitely has a. I mean, I'm just thinking about how to say it. It's like, he has a lovely way of putting it, because so it's like, yeah, make your brain hot. That's a great analogy, because it's almost that feeling like it's been you're rewiring his brain for him, or having him rewire it for himself.
Mm-hmm. It made me laugh so hard the first time he said it, and then it just became this whole inside joke. And he finally said to my sister-in-law, "You make my head hot too, but good as well." Okay, so that was a nice compliment, because she asked the same kind of interesting questions I do. We're such kindred spirits, even though we come from different spirits.
Right.
So this is such a new way for lots of people to think, and a new way for them to act, and a new way for them to treat themselves and to treat the opposite, the person that they're in a relationship with, whatever kind of relationship you are, friends or family or lovers. So I love that you've explained it so well, that what you do is you figure out what yours is and how do you feel it, and then what the other person, their way of feeling it, because it's going to be what they give. So you can go, oh yeah, they are showing me love, and I'll ask them for a little bit of mine too, so that I get some of what makes me really feel loved. But to go, oh yeah, fixing the car and mowing the lawn is their way of showing me they love me, even though I want them to come touch my butt while I'm cooking dinner.
Exactly. There you go.
Oh, I have a client that's her big thing. She wants this guy to touch her butt while she's cooking dinner. And I will tell you an aside, because this might be really interesting for the listeners. He was very resistant because his previous girlfriend had yelled at him. Because he and his late wife had done that, very affectionate, little kiss on the neck and stuff. And this girlfriend that he was very enamored about, the first time he did it, because it was just a natural experience for him, she turned around and yelled in his face.
Completely. Whoa.
I know. So now that he really is caring for my client, he's like, but I'm really nervous about doing this. So I said, you need to go touch his butt, because you've asked, and he thinks it's terrific that she does. And then when you're there, take his hand and remind him that it's okay. He was traumatized.
Well, that's a wound you've got to heal. And the great thing is with a woman who will help him heal it. She's awesome. I had a girlfriend that was one of the things we did, and it was such an intimate thing, because physical touch is one of my primary ones.
Yeah.
And it was always done for a start. It was always a turn on anyway, so it added to anything we were doing. And it was almost like putting a bookmark in, saying later on we're gonna have some fun. So it was like ahead of time. So it was a wonderful gift to give each other. And having someone who didn't have that, I was like, I don't think I could be in a relationship with a woman who doesn't have physical touch as one of her primaries. It's too important to me. And it sounds crazy. So you can learn somebody's primary style, but if they're not even willing to cross that line to be in your zone, you may want to reconsider the relationship choice you've made, because part of being conscious relationship is finding someone you're conscious with.
Yeah. What a concept that you're both awake. Not woke, because woke is a different term right now.
Not going down that path. No.
Just not going there.
But one thing I want to speak to, because that's one thing we talked about in this, I'm going to find it again because I was keeping my notes handy, was about, because we talked about earlier about filling your batteries. And one of those is about how do you treat yourself? because a lot of times in a relationship, and maybe it's just me, maybe nobody else did this, is that I think my partner will do all the work to take care of me, and then I do all the work to take care of them, which is kind of transactional too. But it's also the sense about it was like putting ourselves first in our lives, even when we're in a relationship, to be better partners.
Oh, yes.
That's transformational for some people, because they're looking at a relationship saying, but and this is the worst part, is they believe their partner should be telepathic. You should know what I'm thinking and do it for me. Like, what?
If I think
pretty well.
I was convinced when I was married the first time, if I thought it loud enough, if I screamed it in my head, somehow he'd hear me. I was convinced. I knew this for a fact. So not a fact. No, but we really believe it. We women especially, we believe you can read our minds. We give you this credit for this superpower. And you have lovely superpowers, but it's not one of them.
I strongly suspect that women can read men's minds, but don't tell us about it.
Well, yeah, kind of. We're really good at that MRI scan. We're always scanning. Does he look hungry? Does he look tired? Does he look like
that's the thing, you're reading the signs, and that's the other. That's the truth. The reality is not so much you read our minds, but you can tell that it's like we have tells.
Well, you're so much more transparent than us. We're much better at hiding it all, or looking completely different than we're feeling. I'm fine. Can you tell how fine?
Yeah, exactly. Because when a man says he's fine, he's generally fine. But when a woman says she's fine, not the case.
Usually not at all. Not even a little fine.
Right.
Differently, completely far from fine.
I know. It's kind of like there's so many memes about that one that are out there just cracking up. So definitely, the differences between the two. So the bottom line is taking care of ourselves, so you can be better partners. Because the reality is when you want your partner to take care of themselves, you're a better partner for you. So why not do it yourself for them? Something seems fair. I mean, that and I love a transaction where you're honoring yourself enough to love the other person, so they honor themselves to love you back. That's a transaction I could play with. Not transactional.
We all have a lot in the bank for that.
Oh, yes, definitely. We definitely have that one going on, because it's a pivot point for so many people to start seeing it through that lens. So it's vital. So the fourth, I don't believe in cat. Anyway, the next one was about it, and this is a question that comes up a lot because I've watched this with clients where they basically balance from relationship to relationship, which I did when I was younger. Is to really know why you're in a relationship. Do you want to be one in the first place? I know for some people the rule is, there's something wrong with me if I'm single, especially if you're over 25. And it's like, well, first of all, I disagree with that totally, because I've been single quite a while. I have quite happily being single. The piece I speak to is that choosing a relationship to avoid being single, which a lot of people do, is probably one of the poorest choices you can make, because then you end up in any relationship, which could be something a lot less than you want ultimately too. And it does tie into what you said earlier about taking care of yourself and filling yourself up first. It's almost like when you can be happily single is the best time to be in a relationship. Yeah. But for a lot of people, they do, well, I need to be in a relationship because I hurt from the last one and the next one's going to fix me, which is another one people do.
Yeah.
That rebound concept, and I took that one before. More than once. Yep. And I'm guilty of it too. Yeah. I mean, we've done that before. It's like, I feel better when I'm with somebody else versus when I'm single is when I actually do the work.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the best time to do the work in my book.
And the other part that you're doing when you do the work is, well, there's lots of kinds of relationships to have. So if you're thinking, what kind of a relationship do you have? Do you want a monogamous, committed, romantic, sexual relationship? Okay. Are you looking for somebody? Lots of women especially will say, I want to be friends first. We'll be clear about that and say it out loud. Eventually, I think I want to be in a committed relationship. I'm still working that out. I do know I'd really like a friend. I'd love a friend to go to the movies with and go to dinner with and, have conversations, go hiking. How do you feel about that, Mr. Y chromosome that I'm talking to? Because then he gets to decide, sure, I could do that for a while. I think so then he gets to say what I'm really looking for. I really am looking for a committed relationship. I'm fine starting out as friends. And then you get to continue talking if you really are being a conscious person in a conscious relationship. The 2X person, I'm not moving forward. I really am still just liking you as a friend. And he could say, I really am looking for more. So at least you've talked about it.
Yes.
And you can have that conversation if you're not feeling vulnerable, if you're feeling like you're taking care of yourself and emotionally you're full, because you're like, okay, I can move on and I'm not devastated because we're not a match, at least not right now.
And so underlying that piece about being conscious relationship, second part with yourself.
Yes. Yes.
You're willing to ask those sort of questions. And that actually the next one is about asking the right questions. You know, what are you looking for? What do you want? And oftentimes we go on dates and, you know, it's nice to know what you want. And it's also nice to know what they want.
I know. And we women love guessing. Men hate guessing because you're probably wrong. And I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just it happens enough that you say, I don't even guess anymore. Oh, yeah. You don't know.
No.
And we think we know.
Right.
And sometimes we're right, but let's find out if you're right. Let's at least ask. Ask what's going on for them. Ask what they're wanting for a future. Ask what's good. Yes, ask what's going on for them. Tell them what's going on for you. Oh my gosh, how many people don't do that? Well, I don't know what's going on for them. Let's ask. And what's the scary part about asking? You might not like the answer. Oh, well, at least now you know.
And that's the thing is be willing to ask those questions, which are the dangerous questions, like, what are you looking for? What do you really want to do? You know, do you want someone just to sleep with? Do you want someone who's going to be helping you build a business? Yeah. Do you want someone who's basically going to be a good dance partner on the dance floor? It's like, because those things are going to be coming up. And ideally, if you know ahead of time at least a few things, it gives you a head start that you might have some compatibility that works.
Yes. Yes. So important. I had a male client for a while. All he wanted was a dance partner. He was newly widowed. He knew he wasn't ready for a relationship. And he was having trouble finding somebody to do that. I said, you need to go to a dance place. And then you need to explain to women, this is what you're looking for. And people also think when they're asking that question, they're asking the question about, what are you thinking about me? That's really not the right place to start. The right place to start is, what are you thinking about for your future? You don't know what they would think about you. You don't know what you would think about them. You're just meeting each other. You're just getting to know each other. So be sure to say, I'm just curious what your future looks like for you. What are you looking for? And let me tell you what I'm looking for in my future. I mean, I was really clear when I was ready to get married. I was telling her, I'm really ready to get married. I'm looking for somebody to marry. I'm looking for somebody that's a future partner. I don't know if it's you and I, but I said it out loud all the time.
No, the thing was coming up for me as immediate was like, don't bring a pen and paper with you.
No. Oh yeah, no. I took notes in my head.
Right.
Well, gosh, we got up to 4 of 12.
Right.
We're going to need to be less verbose, which neither one of us like doing because we like using lots of words to explain.
It may become a 2-part episode. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
The next one was...
Cece says it's time for a break.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, then we'll come back because the next one's going to go deeper and it's going to be a bit more content rich.
Yes.
I think. So we need to have time for that. So after the break, it'll be a good time to do that.
Okay. So we're up to commercials. We'll be right back.
See you in a minute.
We're back.
Indeed, we are.
Keys to a conscious relationship. I love it. The key qualities of a conscious relationship. Oh, this is such a fun topic.
And it's funny because I said we have covered a lot of this stuff in previous episodes, but it's nice to bring it all together in some ways. Not that we're done, we've got plenty more to talk about, but it really starts people to start seeing, oh, now I see how this fits together, which is like this jigsaw puzzle we've been talking about, which is really cool.
Yes, that's a really good way to look at it, because we've done so many pieces of the framework. When I love doing jigsaw puzzles, and my husband said what I did is I put together all these subgroups, and so then I'd fit the subgroups into the thing. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking these subgroups and we're making the whole picture together.
Exactly. We've done some of the corners, some of the sides, and put in the middle in.
Yeah. I'm loving it.
So the next one is actually we're talking about behaviors, and that is a huge piece, which is basically is no. It's like, as I say, talk about physician heal thyself. What's the other one about knowing yourself? There's a quote I'm missing somewhere. Anyway,
to thine own self be true.
Something like that. But it's more about know what you're about, know how you work, know about your patterns, and this stuff we talked about. Funny, these are all the stuff we talked about and shared it with you. Attachment styles, I'll get to that as well. But it's like, know what it is that you do that, and I say it this way, know what you do that ruins your relationships. Because I had to go through this myself more than once, to know what it is that I was doing that was making relationships suck, to be honest. Because once I knew what it was.
What's our 100%? Yep.
And so then I could own up to my own participation, my own role, and then I could actually do something about it. And frankly, I could get the help, and I went through a lot of work on this, to transform those behaviors so I didn't do it again.
Yep. So
for many people in the relationship game, they get out one relationship and go, well, that didn't work, let me try another one. And at the end of that relationship, the same thing happens. And you go, don't do that one, let's go on to the next one. I mean, I did relationships. I talk about this in more than one place about how I had 3 relationships in a row where the same thing happened. And I got really clear it wasn't about them anymore, it was about me, because I was the common denominator.
Yeah.
I was the guy I was the person who had brought the same pattern to the relationship, clearly. I couldn't have done it 3 times in a row with 3 amazing women who they brought the pattern to me. No, it was me bringing the pattern to them. So I had to be clear about that, and I had to work on it and to do the work. And that was what actually changed my whole life and put me on this path in the first place. So I'm grateful for that path. Yeah. But if you're not willing to face that, if you're not willing to look at those behaviors, you're going to tend to repeat them because they're going to stay subconscious. So bring them to the surface, make them visible, so to speak, or viewable, and then do something about them. Work with a coach like Christine and myself, or with somebody who can help you to navigate through, so you don't carry that, baggage, right word. Interesting stuff on the tongue there. No Freudian stuff there.
Well, sometimes there's garbage inside the baggage, so there you go.
I was trying to be polite, but bringing your baggage is the next relationship. That was coming out totally wrong. Okay. But one thing I will speak to, and this is something because I've become very familiar with this recently, because I read the book Attached. There's a book you can get on Amazon called Attached. And it talks about attachment styles. And part of when I talk about codependency is we have ways of being in a relationship that can be very enmeshed and very messy. And we're talking about conscious relationship here. Conscious relationship is not enmeshed, it's not messy in that sense. And it's not what I call codependent. Codependent is that transactional piece. It's like, I can't live without the other person. They're going to fix something for me, as we talked about already in this episode, and other things like that too. Part of that is this thing about being an attachment styles, because we have this ability innately to attract relationships that will bring forward what's in our way, but what's our natural tendency. It's almost like when we get into a relationship, our general default patterns show up, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Always. I was trying to be more discreet than that. You can bring it out.
99.62%.
Okay, close enough. but one of the things about how we get attached to people, and so there's actually several. I've been doing some more research and read the book, but there's 3 main attachment styles to talk about in the book, which basically means how you connect or avoid relationship. And there is a style called avoidant. There's also one called anxious, which are basically 2 sides of the same coin in some ways, because avoidant means you never get too close, ultimately. In fact, you'll find reasons to be away from the relationship. So if you're someone who hates being in relationships, you'd rather be alone, this may be your style. So you might want to do more work on this one. The anxious one doesn't feel safe in a relationship. They're always looking for the other person to make them. It's almost like you need constant confirmation that you're okay. And I'm boiling down this big book down to 3 little simple lines. So this is not the whole thing, but it's a key part of this. And so when you get to the point in a relationship where you're constantly needing the other person to validate you, make you feel okay, that's a clue that maybe you want to do some work on yourself, because it's not their job to keep doing that. They might do this, but they're not doing that, or not required to do that. So it's on you to do the work. The secure format, which is the ideal, and apparently I think it's something like around about 45-50% of the people on the planet are actually secure attachment style, which is great. Secure people are not either one. Basically, you're comfortable in yourself, you're okay with being in a relationship, everything works in terms of your own life. And I say in other ways, not everything works in your whole life, but you're okay with your life. You don't feel like you need someone to make you feel okay, and you're just trying to avoid anybody. It's kind of in the middle, so to speak. So, and again, that is a very, very simplistic distillation of a very thick book. So just understand, I'm just giving you the cliff notes. But when you understand,
can recognize yourself by just those little tiny explanations, for sure.
Yes. And so recognizing that the patterns and the beliefs and the behaviors you carry in a relationship are a reflection. I mean, frankly, if you just took the time when you're single to look in the mirror and reflect back on your own experiences in past relationships, you'd have a wealth of content to work through to be clear before your next relationship starts happening.
Oh, I know. Instead of thinking of them as failures, I tell people we're going to go on an archaeological dig.
Yes.
It'll be amazing, the stuff that we're going to explore and discover and excavate and do something about. Because treasures are put in museums, and we'll put it in a museum and say, look what we learned from that. And we're not going to do that again.
Ever again.
And so that really leads to the next thing of, now that you've done the work, you're going to turn into the kind of person you want to date.
Yeah. It's like when you want to be in an amazing relationship, what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
So why not build that relationship yourself? And I mean this point of view of just the way you want to be treated, treat yourself that way.
Yeah.
So take care of yourself. If you want to be someone who's healthy and fit, be healthy and fit. Don't be waiting for them to show up.
Don't wait for somebody to go walking with.
Right. Start walking now.
Wait for somebody to buy you flowers.
Buy yourself some. So many things. And it sounds so simplistic, but the reality is that if you do this, first of all, you start falling in love with yourself all over again, which is great, because as I said before, when you love yourself, you become more attractive. But secondly, your need for that relationship becomes a joy and an invitation versus I must have it, because you don't feel attached as much.
Yeah. And the two killer things that get you into relationships that aren't good for you are lonely and desperate. So when you're giving to yourself and you're feeling full up, neither do you feel lonely or desperate.
And in fact, I would say those two are probably on the highest spectrum of what makes you unattractive.
Very much. Very attractive to the wrong kind of people, and not attractive.
Oh, that one too. Yeah, actually, that's true. There are people out there who like that sort of person. So be very careful, because it's not the one you want. I'm pretty sure you don't want that one.
No.
So I want to throw an extra one in here, because it's not actually on the list, because something I thought about this morning in meditation was that I almost want to say it like this way, like know your lane or stay in your lane. And I mean it this way is, I talked about this before in our conversation about the masculine and feminine conversation, about how there's roles we play in each other in relationships. So beyond the 5 love languages and everything else is the role you play, because I did this badly many times in relationships. I didn't know differently. So I'm speaking from past experience.
Mm-hmm.
Those relationships I talked about earlier taught me how I was not living in my masculine, because I didn't know what it was at the time. I was clueless. And frankly, I'm grateful for the journey I've had for the last 15 years, because I learned now differently what should work. So, and by the way, Cece, it's not on the list. This is a new one. So this one just came up. So it's not, I didn't get a chance to send it to you to add the list. So the thing about this is that for the majority of people, I'm going to be very clear, this is generalization, not 100%, but generalized. Us men thrive and function better when we own our masculine traits and masculine consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
And you ladies, generally speaking, because some are in each other's camp, so to speak, thrive when you own your feminine gifts and your feminine talents. And truly, when men and women are in their authentic nature that way, first of all, the chemistry is amazing. And that's what I talked about. It's renewable. The attraction is great.
Yeah.
Sidebar, I actually have a date this weekend. Well, again, excuse me, I don't want to say that. We're getting together as friends. We're not doing dates, because again, we're being clear, as you said. But she embodies her feminine every time I see her. So I'm excited to hang out with her, because first of all, it makes it easy for me to stay in my masculine, because there's clear polarity. It's one of the benefits, by the way.
Yeah.
And secondly, I just want to enjoy that experience of being in that energy for a while, because I've been around women who own that so well. So she'll hear that from me on Saturday. I know. I'm going to tell her that.
And I hear that from men so often. I am going to reaffirm that that you love when you get to be in your masculine because the woman is so comfortable being in her feminine?
Well, that's the ideal.
Yeah.
However, quite a few of my clients, especially when they've been single mothers or they've been working in the corporate world a lot, they have actually almost forgotten how to navigate back to their feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest challenges, is that when you start meeting somebody and you're out of alignment with your lane, and I was in the personal growth work where I was doing a lot of heart-centered spiritual work, which is more feminine, energetic. I wasn't in my masculine either, so I flipped the script. So even though I was in leadership roles, in fact, my last relationship, when I was writing, I looked at an old a blog post I wrote for one of the websites about 6-7 years ago, and I talked about how she was so pissed off at me because when she met me, I was taking charge, I was running the show, I was getting things done. But as soon as we got together, I gave up the role. I became the passenger, and she became the one running the show because, first of all, she occupied the role so strongly, I didn't want to compete with her. She lived in a masculine, and again, and this is hindsight, I didn't know at the time what was going on, but she wasn't in her lane. She didn't act feminine, she didn't play feminine. I'm wondering why I was attracted to her, frankly, because of she wasn't sort of, I mean, of course, now looking in hindsight, back at the time, I was in my feminine looking at the masculine energy. So anyway, but the thing is, there are men who are naturally more feminine and women who are naturally more masculine, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about the majority of men and women are aligned to masculine and feminine correspondingly. And when we own that part of our lives and we embody that, it is what's always going to change culture, because when we wake up to those parts authentically, we live our lives in a much more aligned, much more authentic, and also much more abundant way. And I know when women see men in their masculine, truly their masculine, they start to trust that more, because when a man's in his masculine, he's much more trustable rather than when he's not. Mm-hmm. And so him owning his masculine presence, his beingness, and his calling, because part of being a masculine man is having a calling, a purpose, a mission, whatever that is, to do something bigger than himself, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's a social change or his career for me, or something else, it's like that piece of the puzzle is important, because when she sees that in him, first of all, it's very thrilling, but secondly, it's also very trustworthy. And on the other side, for women, when they really embody their feminine, for us men, it opens our hearts. I mean, to be transparent, when a woman is in a feminine, yes, it's very sexy too, but it's also, it just makes us feel so much more, the words that describe it, because it's heart opening. It's also more, it's almost like, I know I've had this with women when we've had friendships like this, but I feel almost proud to be next to her. Uh-huh. When she owns her feminine, because feminine is not weak. Let's be clear, feminine is very powerful. Mm-hmm. Feminine, there's something about it that's very thrilling. It's very attractive. It's very sexy. Mm-hmm. But it's also very reassuring in another way. So,
very much. For both people.
Yes, exactly. I know, and again, this is cliff notes for the whole thing. I mean, I've been studying this for 15 years, so there's a lot more to it than this, but just to give you that taste of what it's about, is staying in your lane, meaning that you own your true nature in the relationship. So men lining up to your masculine, that's your natural trait, women in your feminine, owning your feminine traits and skills, creates a greater polarity, which is what chemistry is based on, by the way. That's a little hint for another teaching, another point. But recognizing that that your authentic alignment creates a much healthier polarity in a relationship, which is what you need for a healthy relationship. And by the way, that actually applies to gay relationships too, because this is not gender-based, that's polarity-based.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 points on that I wanted to touch on too, because
that's not spouting that for a while, so please.
No, I love it, because the women get to hear this with a male voice. As much as I say this, I'm still a woman saying it, so I am beyond grateful that you say this. And to talk to women for a second is how strong you are when you're in your femininity. Mm-hmm. I think what happened in the feminist movement is that somehow we got the brainwashing that femininity was weak. Yes. And that we needed to get more into our masculine side, which is what the feminists. So for the women who have done that, and they're running companies and, businesses, and you have to be in your masculine to do that. You need to be focused and goal-oriented and very masculine. And the thing you need to learn, and I love teaching, and you do it too, is how do you flick the light switch so that you go into your feminine when you have this masculine person there to support you. Because women have burned out their adrenal glands by staying with too much testosterone all the time, surging in their bodies, because that isn't what feeds us. Estrogen feeds us. And that the thing that I heard you say, and didn't use these words, so I don't know if it's exactly what happened to you, but I know for some of the men, when the woman steps up and takes over, you're like, okay, I want her to be happy. And this is obviously what looks like it's going to make her happy. So I will step back and she can go do all these things. And when she's ready for me to do something for her, she'll tell me, or she'll step back and I'll step up. And then you start getting less of the drive and the direction and the goals. So your testosterone goes down and your estrogen goes up. That when we women, because we truly have all the power, most of the time, do that light switch thing, well, in a good way. If we step back into our powerful feminine, you will rise to the occasion if you're the right kind of masculine man for us, and step into your testosterone-ness. And when we get to receive and you get to provide, the balance happens back. And our adrenals calm down and we find we have more energy and we feel like we're more in control of our lives when we have more estrogen. So I think it's so important that women think about, how am I running my life? How am I running my days? How can I balance having both the masculine when it's appropriate and the feminine when it's appropriate? And how do I make sure that I'm getting a partner that's a good balance for that too?
Absolutely. I mean, this is such a. I mean, this is cornerstone of my work. So I'm like, we could do a whole. We've done a show on this. I think we've already done at least one on this.
Yeah.
But the piece I add on to that is when a woman and agreed, the feminist movement did masculinize women, so to speak. Although they won't be in the masculine much as more trying to copy what the men were doing, which is a whole other piece. The piece I speak to is for when women were doing that, they couldn't find a man they could trust because there was no men that could stand up to that level of masculinity they were carrying, that of alignment. And truly, for us men, our job now, it seems more than ever, for those of us who know what masculinity is, because some men are waking up to that, a lot more men are waking up to it slowly but surely, can we step into that masculinity enough that when we're around a woman who's in the masculine, that we don't give it over to her. Not we fight for it, but we hold our space strong enough that she can keep knocking. We don't fall over. She goes, I can trust him.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of women, they need to know they can trust the man who's masculine because she can do it so well on her own.
Oh, yeah.
She finds it, can trust that will hold the masculine space for her. She can finally go, thank you. You can have this. I can relax my feminine now.
Yes. Yes.
And that for me is one of the pivot points for relationships.
It's one of the best. As a woman, I love when that happens.
Exactly. If I'd only known this back then, it would be so much easier because I didn't know it back then.
Well, and I did it the opposite way. I was so emasculating. It was terrible. I really had no idea what I was doing to men and my relationships and why they weren't working out. Duh.
Right. So here's a little tip, because this is what happened for me this coming weekend. The friend I'm getting together with is, we started playing into the conversation like, where do you want to go? Where do you meet up? And it was like, she said to me, thank God she said it to me. He said, please take care of everything. And then she said, because we don't know each other that well, because I was about to text her back and say, okay, great, just so I know what's your dietary thing. She said, I have no dietary restrictions. And I was like, thank you. Because then I can make everything done. And when I texted her back saying, we can meet this time, this place, I'll see you there, because we're meeting in a central place. I'm not picking her up, because again, first time, just to be clear, we're being honorable. It's like she was loving everything I said. See, that's the simplicity of what masculine and feminine polarity can be like.
Yeah.
Whereas basically the woman is going to let the man choose. And of course, if he makes a mistake, be willing to course correct lovingly that he didn't necessarily choose the right choice, but thankfully I guess they did okay. We'll find it Saturday when I get together with her. But the recognition that we can contribute towards each other's natural alignment by encouraging it.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
you asked, she gave permission, you took the bull by the horns, and off you went. And so there's the duality of the masculine and feminine, where please hear this, women. He asked permission. She gave him permission. Right. It wasn't him being bullish. It wasn't her making decisions. It wasn't her telling him what to do. It was saying, this is what would please me. And he's like, oh, I want to do that. I'm happy to please you.
Exactly.
Any other instructions you want, I'm happy to listen to them. I mean, I love that whole interplay. It was perfect.
It was fun because the thing is like, because I've not been on a date before we're actually done the work that side of things, because most of it's just a central place where let's meet here back and forward. But again, this woman who I know, we actually went through the same grad school, so we've known each other for a while. But it's the first time we're getting together for a long time. Is she has such a femininity in her presentation energetically, I cannot ignore that. And frankly, I don't want to.
Well, and just when you talk about the whole interchange, you glow. And this is what happens to both sides. You both get to feel your best. You both get to feel energized. Your testosterone went through the roof. Her estrogen went through the roof. Because that's how our bodies were built. Until our bodies are built a different way, I don't know when. This is really the way to feed it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the thing, again, back to this piece is this is how every relationship should be, not just romantically, but every relationship can be. You know, if you could be in a relationship with your siblings, your family, your employers and employees, where the masculine and feminine plays out. Again, owning your space in the relationship, all relationships.
Yes.
And making all the relationships conscious, because this is talking about conscious romantic relationship, but we're not limiting it to that.
Yes.
And so that that piece wasn't in the conversation because again, this happened after the show on Monday, which I did at the clubhouse room. But it's like this is something that's so fundamental. It's about really staying in your lane because there's a gift and a challenge. There's a challenge in it too, because the tendency for me is that one thing about masculines, we want to be done with things. One of our gifts is we like to complete goals, get things done. But when we're done, we want to put our feet up. We want to relax.
Oh yeah. You want to be thanked. You want us to say, thank you. I really appreciate you did all that work for me.
True. That's another part of it too. It's not ego boosting. That's just like confirmation of the work.
Yeah. You used your time, energy, and money to please us. It's how nice if we tell you, you pleased me. Thank you. We'd be happy if you did that again.
There's no disempowerment. That's actually very powerful on both sides.
Both sides. Yes. Equally.
Absolutely.
Oh, boy, could we just say that more time? Equally.
Indeed, it is.
So, yes, we have to bring sex into the conversation.
Well, duh.
Barry and Christine are talking about dating, so we have to have
Exactly.
So there, yes, thank you, Cece. Know your sexual preferences and what is the difference between intimacy. Oh, yes. And we love that definition of intimacy. Oh my gosh, there's such a difference when you can be vulnerable and open and talk about your desires and what you like and don't like and what you need from another person, what kind of verbal considerations and compliments and asking ahead of time. I mean, what do you need? Please say that out loud.
So here's a couple of things. Know yourself first, but don't bring it up on the first date.
Yes. Oh, yes. No. Day 3, we talked about that before. At least wait till
we did. Again, a lot of the stuff we talked about in previous shows, we're recapping here. Yeah. But the thing about this is so important is because a lot of times we look at relationship and we think it's going to be like, we presume into the relationship that this is going to be this way. And maybe your partner and you don't have the same spectrum of preference. And also, again, let's break down the thing between sex and intimacy before we wrap the show up, is the act of sex and the act of intimacy are not necessarily the same thing. They can overlap, but they are different. And the fact that intimacy starts when you first talk on the phone, or you video chat, or you meet for the first time over coffee, you start building that energetic, which can lead towards that if that's so desired. But it's not the same as actually sex. So I just want to make sure you get this, because we talked this before as well. But intimacy is almost the most important piece, because intimacy is a way of being connected with somebody else on a very deep level. That happens when you're walking down the street, not just when you're between the sheets. No. So,
and feeling vulnerable, even just some of these questions we're saying, could you tell them what you need and want in a relationship, not sexually necessarily. I want a future. I want a partner. I want to travel a bunch. That's very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so you need to first be vulnerable with just that kind of conversation.
Right.
And then can you be vulnerable if you talk about sex? But it's down the road. You're already laying the foundation of, can I show you who I really am?
Exactly. So that's not everything, I know, but we're going to wrap the show up. So I know we come to the end of the episode, I think, at this point.
Yeah, bummer, huh?
We'll save that for another time.
We have more. We always have more.
So here's the thing. Make sure you tune in and watch us because we keep talking about this stuff.
And keep building on this foundation and putting the puzzle pieces together so that you will be able to feel like you're dating more successfully and figuring out where you want to be and then getting there.
Absolutely. I mean, if this show didn't change your ability to date, I don't know what will.
Such valuable information.
Yeah.
So the way that you can talk to us about any of these subjects is the way to talk to me is my website is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you can click on what's holding you back from love. And that will give you a chance to talk to me for a complimentary conversation. And we can talk about anything and everything. And you will walk away knowing more than you did about yourself and your dating and your life and what you might need to do next. And you can also send me an email, Christine@theperfectcatch.com. You can also read about me and reach out to me through Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube. And did I miss one?
Instagram.
And what? Instagram. Thank you.
I know it's the one.
Instagram. And how do people reach you, Barry?
Certainly. Well, I've got to keep Instagram all the time. So you can find me on my website, which is barryselby.com. As I said last week, it's been revamped. I've just got a couple of tweaks still happening, but it's still looking pretty good. You can click on the different buttons around the front page. I'll let you, what's we're looking for? Sign up for a conversation with me so we can have a conversation. I'll help you get started because, yes, same as with Christine, we're both here to help. And that first chat is a gift from us to you that will give you some clarifications, some navigation, some next steps. And also you can see if you want to work with this or not, because this conversation may be really appealing to you. But when you talk to us on the phone, you might go, am I ready for that? Because we don't hold back, just to be clear, we don't hold back in our work.
No.
So besides my website, and there's a bunch of, and on my website, there's a bunch of things, including videos and other gifts, and my book is on there too. You can email me at barry@barryselby.com. I'll try to say it in one statement, not half a statement. And also I'm all over social media, so you can check me out. I'm Barry Selby on LinkedIn, Twitter, on Pinterest, and on Clubhouse. Again, follow me on Clubhouse. I do some amazing rooms on Clubhouse. On Instagram, I'm at The Real Barry Selby, and on Facebook, it's barryselby.author. And I think that's everything for now. So do be willing to reach out and get support from either one of us, because we both bring, as you can tell, a fair bit of experience and some lightheartedness to our conversations.
Yes.
If you want to have a healthy relationship, we can help you with that.
Yeah. It's fun and introspective and insightful and educational. Always.
But we do go deep.
Always.
Always.
Because what's the point, right? How do we move from here to there without going deep?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
next week, same time, same bat channel, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, everywhere in between. Let's talk about dating with Christine and Barry.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Take care.